Welcome back, guys. I've compiled the best clips of Indian External Affairs Minister Subrahmanyam Jaishankar, where he diplomatically demolishes reporter after reporter who try to bait him. Unfortunately for them, Dr. Jaishankar might be one of the cleverest, well-spoken, and well-informed politicians these fools have come across, and hits them back faster than Lizzo goes through a dozen pizzas. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the comments section.
On the question of, US, Canada, religious freedom, etc. Do they want to influence us? Answer is yes. They do want to influence us because many of these countries feel that they have influenced the world for the last 70, 80 years in the world order, and Western countries actually feel they influenced the world for the last 200, 300 years. So are they willing to, how do you expect someone who's been in that position to give up those old habits so easily? They are looking for that class of people really to rule this country. And I think they're disturbed when the Indian population feels otherwise. Countries who have to go to court to decide the result of their election are giving you today gyan about how to conduct your election.
In terms of relationship with Russia, India, in terms of the border conflict with Russia, you have been talked about the importance of the territorial integrity and sovereignty, but you have not come out in terms of criticizing Russia aggression to Ukraine, and people may think that this double standard. So what would be your position on this comment?
We in India know better than almost any other country. Because immediately after our independence, we experienced aggression. We experienced an effort to change our boundaries. And even today, parts of India are occupied by another country. But we did not see the world respond saying, oh, there's a great principle involved, and therefore let us all go with India. So yes, today we are being told that there are principles involved. I wish I had seen that principle in play for the last 80 years. I've seen those principles cherry-picked when it suits people and not when it doesn't suit people. But
I would say first the relevance of the UN. The UN used to be more relevant in 1950s, 60s. But what happened was, as the number of countries grew, and those five who were the self-selected chaudharis of the system, they actually, it was easier for them to dominate a smaller number of countries between whom there was a big gap, that their power or their authority was there, rest of the world was there. Think back. Did anybody think UN was going to help anybody in COVID? Well, look, I actually made 2 points. One, how the world is changing. It is rebalancing. It is less Euro-Atlantic. I don't think everybody gets that. I think old habits die hard. I mean, very candidly, there are still people in the world who believe that their definition, their preferences, their views must override everything else. I could take a view that the individual in question, Mr. Soros, is a old, rich, opinionated person sitting in New York who still thinks that his views should determine how the entire world works. Now, if I could only stop at old, rich and opinionated, I would put it away. But he is old, rich, opinionated and dangerous. People like him think an election is good if the person we want to see wins. If the election throws up a different outcome, then we actually will say it's a flawed democracy. This to my and the beauty is all this is done under the
pretense of advocacy of open society, of transparency, etc. When I look at my own democracy, I mean, I have today a voter turnout which is unprecedented, electoral outcomes which are decisive, electoral processes which are not questioned. We are not one of those countries where after the election somebody goes to arbitrate in court.
The West seems to be quite vociferous in trying to curtail funding for the war in Ukraine, whereas by purchasing this oil for national interest, India is being asked, are you funding this war?
So, look, I mean, I don't want to sound argumentative, but then tell me if buying Russian gas is not funding the war? I mean, why is it's only Indian money and oil coming to India which funds, but it's not gas coming to Europe which funds? I mean, look, somewhere, I mean, let's be a little even-handed out here.
Freelance journalist from Vilnius, Lithuania. Dr. Jaishankar, with the Indian government essentially ignoring war crimes in Ukraine, not condemning Russia, not doing sanctions, you then expect, I'm totally sorry, I know what I do, with India counting on global support for in its struggle with China, its issues with China. How do you think you'll be trusted by others after that? Why do you think anyone will help Delhi after you didn't help others over Ukraine? Thank you.
You know, it's an interesting question which you might, I mean, not you, meaning you personally, but people might want to ask themselves, because if I were to take Europe collectively, which has been singularly silent on many things which were happening, for example, in Asia, you could ask, why would anybody in Asia trust Europe on anything at all? So first, I would urge you to get the factual position accurately. I mean, if we are getting into who is silent on what issue at what point of time, I could point to a whole lot of issues on which, as I said, I mean, Europe has held its peace. You know, somewhere Europe has to grow out of the mindset that Europe's problems are the world's problems, but the world's problems are not Europe's problems. That if it is you, it's yours. If it is me, it's ours. I think that's something, and I see, you know, reflections of that.
Let's talk about the war in Ukraine. As you are well aware, the whole world noticed that India, as a very influential country, has never publicly condemned Russia's assault and invasion into a neighboring country. Why is that so? Can you really be neutral in a war for which obviously one side bears all responsibility?
Well, look, I think in international relations, you have sometimes very complicated situations. And where we are concerned, we have always taken the position that the way out is for the countries concerned to get back to dialogue and to diplomacy.
I'll come to that soon, but is this a complicated situation? Is this really complicated? There's just one big country invading its neighbor.
No, look, I can give you many instances of countries who have violated the sovereignty of another country. You know, if I were to ask where Europe stood on a lot of those, I'm afraid I'll get a long silence. So do understand one thing. At the end of the day, we make judgments in foreign policy based on what we think are our long-term interests and what is good for the world.
Let's talk about India's interests. India does not take part in Western sanctions against Russia, but has increased its imports from Russia 5 times since the war began. By this, are you not helping Moscow? Are you not financing Russia's war?
You know, Europe imported in the same period 6 times the energy which India did. So
Europe decreased its imports a lot and dramatically since the war started. You multiplied yours.
No, essentially, if it is a matter of principle, why didn't Europe cut on the first day? Why didn't we see on 25th of February a complete cutoff of energy imports from Russia? You can't say it's my principle, but by the way, I will do it by my timing. So if we are talking about principles, let's talk a little bit of history out here. So how did the Indian exposure to Russia and previously to Soviet Union get built up? Because the Western democracies, for whatever reason, decided that their natural partner in our part of the world was a military dictatorship.